So with the Batman, coming out basically a day earlier than planned, according to various sources, and what was talked about on the John Campea show recently, it did bring up the whole controversial 45-day window deal that got put into place officially at the end of last year going into this year as a result, and let's not kid ourselves with this, as a result of the whole COVID pandemic situation that happened, which basically threw a lot of people and their lives and a lot of studios and their projects, their productions and all that, out of whack and into uncertainty. Because of that, a lot of movies that were meant for theaters ended up going straight to streaming, or ended up going straight to video on demand, either as a rental or a purchase, if not both. And because of that, like I said, all major parties, studios, the MPAA, or the MPA as they call themselves now, NATO, the National Association of Theater Owners, they all agreed that to prevent any situation coming up that would be similar to what happened with the pandemic, that we would have a 45-day window now between when a movie's released in theaters and when it hits streaming about a month and a half later. Now, of course, not a lot of people, mostly producers, directors, writers, and all that, the creative team basically behind these projects are not 100% behind it, if at all. In fact, a lot of them want to have the window for their projects expanded. Christopher Nolan's been very vocal about it. Tom Cruise has been vocal about it. Anybody that you think has a foothold, if you will, has some kind of leeway in Hollywood, mostly has come out and said they're not totally on board with this whole 45-day window deal, especially when it comes to movies that they are viewing and eyeing to be big blockbusters throughout the year, or throughout the seasonal part of the year they come out. I mean, Tom Cruise has basically said that he's not on board with the fact that, his future Mission Impossible movies are going to be ending up in this situation, because he feels that, hey, I'm putting a lot of time and effort into these films. I don't want them to suddenly just show up on Paramount Plus a month and a half later without people experiencing them, on the big screen. He wants people to have that experience. And obviously the same could be said for Top Gun Maverick. But here's the thing. Even though Tom Cruise has been very vocal about that, it's not really his call. I mean, yes, these movies are his babies that he's personally working on behind the scenes, but it's not his call, because Paramount's the one that made the deal, along with other studios like Warner Brothers, Universal, Disney, etc. So it's not his call. And he's just got to pretty much deal with the situation, at hand. Now, could he take Paramount to court and say, hey, here's the legal information, the legal documents that say I have some say, if not most say, in what happens with this movie? Could he do that? Absolutely. And if there's enough evidence to support him, the courts could say, okay, Paramount, he wants the movie to stay in theaters for 3 months. Let it stay in the theaters for 3 months, and that would basically happen. The same with Christopher Nolan. If Christopher Nolan, has a movie upcoming, I think he has several that pretty much people are saying are going to be major blockbusters. If he wants to take legal documents to court and say, hey, this says I have as much say, if not most say, in what happens with this movie, and the courts rule in his favor, and they say that movie has to stay in theaters for at least 90 days or 120 days, it will happen. There's nothing that Warner Brothers would be able to do to stop it, because it would be legal and binding, period. It'd be legal and binding. But with that said, is the 45-day window, a major problem? Not just Not just with, with producers, creative teams and all that behind these films, but is it a major problem when it comes to the movie goers? The people that like to go to the movies once in a while and see these things on the big screen. And I think, honestly, it's 50-50. I think because of the fact that, and I say this from experience because I still see customers coming into my store, even though we've taken down the ruling of, hey, whether or not you're vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask. There are people that still are wearing masks. So it's kind of 50-50, in my opinion, of, this whole 45-day window when it comes to the movie going public, that, they're cool, that either they're cool with it or they're not cool with it. I mean, I know that there are some that will side with the creative people behind the movie, behind the process of the film. I understand that. I can see that. But I can also see people supporting the idea of, hey, we can wait 45 days and then it'll show up on said streaming service or on a video on demand as theater at home, and we could just watch it that way and watch it in a more safer environment. So to me, it's kind of 50-50 when it comes to the movie going public. But when it comes to those that, are behind the movies, the creative team, the producers, the directors and all that, I don't think it's 50-50 at all. I think there's a majority of folks. It's more 75-25, if you ask me, in that department, the creative department, of folks that would rather have these movies, these big projects they're working on, in the theaters for as long as they can have them in the theaters, and at least, give it maybe 3, maybe 4 months, on the big screen, and before, dropping it to streaming, video on demand, and physical media. So there is a big difference in comparison. Like I said, when it comes to the movie going public, like myself, my family, and all of us, it's 50-50 because there are some of us that do support the idea that movies should be enjoyed in theaters and should have a long-lasting life in theaters before heading to digital media and physical media and all that down the line. But we also understand that the other 50% of the public, the national public, worldwide public, are still uncertain about what's going on around here. I mean, you have the news pretty much saying, oh, well, this is going on, here's this new variant, here's this new variant, here's that new variant, oh, the CDC is extending this and all that. And because they're hearing this and they're buying into it, it causes them to still be uncertain of whether or not things are still safe, which is why that 50% would be more in favor of waiting 45 days to see said movie, but to see it in the comfort and safety of their own home. And that's the big difference. That is the big difference between 2 points of view. Because like I said, with the creative team behind these films, it's 75-25, with 75% in favor of keeping them in theaters as long as they can. Well, with the public, the movie-going public, it's 50-50. But what do you guys think of the 45-day window? What are your thoughts on it overall? Let me know down below in the comments, as well as in the live chat during the premiere with super chats and super sticks. It would be appreciated, especially at this time for me. And until then, I will talk to y'all later.